Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for agreeing to participate in this interview.
Yes, ma'am.
We are hoping to better understand the learning and the behavioral issues that may affect children who are prenatally exposed to opiates during pregnancy. Your participation in this interview is completely voluntary, and you may terminate the interview at any time for any reason. The interview will be video and audio recorded so that the researcher will be able to transcribe your responses. However, your identity of your current institution will remain anonymous, and the interview results will be reported in aggregate.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
So could you please describe your current employment position and your job responsibilities for me?
Okay. I am currently a principal at an elementary school. We house pre-K through 8th grade. I basically take care of most of the activities from scheduling to bus duty to cafeteria duty, custodial, whatever is necessary from the day-to-day activities of running a school. I do try to take care of testing, cutting bushes outside, whatever's necessary. I try to help out and participate in to make sure our students are safe and have a good learning environment.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Can you please describe your educational background?
Okay, my bachelor's degree I obtained some years ago in it's a Bachelor of Science in Language Arts. I was certified to teach 7th through 12th grade English. After teaching for 10 years, I went back to school and got my master's degree in school counseling, which I served as school counselor in a high school setting for 4 years. I then got my educational specialist degree in administration and supervision, where I was first of all an assistant principal and then became a principal.
Wow,
And now I'm pursuing my doctorate, so
that's great. Um, well, you kind of did this, but please describe the length of time you have been teaching or working with children in the primary grade school.
okay. Most of my background is in a high school or like 6th grade through 12th grade. So the length of time that I've really been working with elementary children from or primary children as a whole would be 5 years. This is my 22nd year in education, and 5 of those have been truly in an elementary setting.
Great. So, can you describe the behavior plan that your school uses in both the individual classrooms and the entire school?
Okay, most of our teachers do a point system or like a number scale of 1 to 6. Of course, if they're number 6, they're doing really well. If they go down to a 1, that's not so good. A lot of them will move their clips. They have certain colors that warrant good behavior. If you have a green day, you've had a really good day. If you've had a red day, you've not had a very good day at all. They send a behavior chart home for all grades through 3rd grade. The school itself, we try to do a positive enforcement, reinforcement of good behavior. I do have an assistant principal for the first time ever in the history of the school this year, and part of her training is in behavioral programs. She's worked extensively with problem children, which we don't have a lot of, but all behavior we do try to promote doing the right things at all times, even when no one's looking. We have lots of positive motivational posters hanging around the school, and really just stress that we're to teachers and our students, we're all in this together, and the more we can do together to help each other, the better off we'll all be in the long run.
Great. So, what type of behavioral issues, if any, have you noticed of children in the primary grade classroom that were exposed to opiates while their mothers were pregnant?
Okay, we have several children, and I'm in a very rural area. We know a lot of our parents grew up around a lot of their parents, grandparents, that kind of thing. And when you think about we kind of know a lot of people and kind of what their background has been and whether they have been on drugs while pregnant and different things like that. Most of what we see are attention problems and I guess a processing problem because the children don't seem to retain a lot of what they're dealing with.
Hello? Hello?
And
Hello?
focus issues. And are you with me?
Oh, you kind of froze. So the last thing I heard you say was the biggest issues that you have found are, you said processing, and then you kind of phased out.
Okay, we have a lot of processing issues, a lot of attention and focus issues. Most of the children with whom we work that we know were exposed to opiates or drug use in general have many attention deficit problems and being able to stay focused, being able to stay in their seat for very well, even a very short amount of time. And many of those children are not on medication because it's too risky for the parents who would take their own children's medicine. So we have to deal with them the best way we can.
That's interesting. Can you expand a little bit on what you meant by processing?
Processing, a lot of what I'm talking about there is they just can't. If you see a math problem, for instance, on paper, it's almost like a foreign language to them because they know their math facts, but when it goes to actually putting together what they must do to solve that math problem, they can't get that on paper. They'll ask, I know, just in one situation, we had a third grade teacher talking about the other day. She was working with a young man who has been exposed to drugs. And he said, do I take away or do I add? So the processing part of the math problem itself just isn't there. This child's in third grade and he still doesn't know the difference in subtraction and take away and addition. So,
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
yes, ma'am.
So what learning issues, if any, have you noticed? I guess you kind of said that, of children in the primary grades that were exposed to opiates while their mothers were pregnant.
We do have a lot of functional delay, if you will, because of the drug abuse. I'm not medically, knowledgeable about that, but I think their growth doesn't seem to be. They're very slow where they need to be. If they're in kindergarten or first grade, they're just not where they need to be, and it's developmental slash functional delay in some cases because they didn't have the correct nourishment and different things while they were pregnant.
So functional delay meaning like height and weight.
And
Also,
just even gross motor skills, fine motor skills. Some of them have difficulty even holding pencils because they're just developmentally delayed in where they need to be.
okay, so you're saying they're developmentally delayed, but they don't necessarily have like a diagnosis of anything.
Right.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Are there any notable differences in behaviors of children that were exposed prenatally to opiates and have stayed with their biological parents compared to foster or adoptive parents?
That's a tough one to answer because not many of our children have been adopted or are in foster care. They are still with their biological parents. And this is an opinion, I guess, but based on my experience with where I am in the rural part of the county, I think there are differences in their behaviors because they're going to stay this way. Had if they were given the opportunity to go to a foster home or to an adoptive set of parents, they might be better off. One, they would get the help they needed. Two, they would get the proper nourishment and care just in an overall hygiene state and things like that. Whereas right now they're in a bad place and I guess kind of remain there. So it's like the cycle's not going to get broken, I guess. So the behaviors, other than what we can do in the 7 hours that we have the children.
You kind of you froze again a little bit.
Did I answer that question for you?
Oh, yes, you kind of froze there for a minute. Sorry.
Do I need to repeat anything?
Um, you had said, oh, one thing I wanted to clarify to ask you is you said if they stayed with the biological parents, they might not have gotten the help that they needed. Um, what kind of help were you thinking? Is that like help with school, help with development?
Yes, help with school because they're in the bad place with their parents. They're not going to get the extra help that they need at home. If the parents would just sit down and read 20 minutes a night with them, it would make all the difference in the world in their ability both to read and to comprehend. And staying in that situation is not going to help them get any better help.
Okay. Um, and to piggyback off that question, are there any noticeable differences in learning issues of the children? So these are learning issues of the children that are exposed prenatally to opiates and stayed with their biological parents compared to foster or adopted.
Um, and like I said, I can't really address the adoptive or foster because not that many of our children have been in that situation. We can call DCS and report the things that we know to report, but that doesn't mean they're always pulled from the homes or
Right.
even investigated.
And how forthcoming do you feel that parents are with the school about prenatal exposure with drugs or opiates?
They're not. Oftentimes we have to, as I said, we're in a very small area and we kind of know the community and know the parents with whom we're dealing. But you can also tell there are some giveaways when their teeth are gone because of meth use. They're just the way they come in, their appearance, lack of communicating with the school. I know there are times when we have lots of issues getting them to come pick up their sick children and that kind of thing because they don't want the school calling. They don't want to have a lot of interaction with the school. And I think part of that is because we know what they're involved in, and often kind of just take a back seat to giving us any kind of information.
Okay, so they're not really forthcoming at all about the exposure of their children.
No, not at all. The only way they're forthcoming with us is when they're in a position where they have to. Uh, the pharmacy, I know we had a situation last year where the parents were guilty of taking the child's medicine. So the pharmacy would call and say, so and so has just left with the prescription. They're headed to your school so that they can sign in the medicine for their child. And we gave them this number of pills, and this is what you should receive when he or she gets there. That when they're forced to let us know something or that there's a problem is the only way that they're generally forthcoming with
Okay,
information to us.
right. Um, and have you noticed any difference if any of the children are in DCS?
No, we don't have a lot of foster children in our particular school. Um, in fact, we don't have anyone that's in foster care in our building right now. So my experience there is not going to be very helpful, and I apologize for that.
No.
Uh, but I can't really speak a lot about the foster care right now.
I'm sure. I'm sorry. I should have clarified. Do you know if DCS are involved with any families of children that were prenatally exposed to opiates?
I know they have been.
Okay.
I know they have been, and things improve for a little while. The children will come clean. They will come better dressed, better prepared for school, but it doesn't last. When the case is closed or they know DCS kind of has worked with them for a little while, things revert back to the way they were before.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any questions that maybe I have left out or need to have asked you that I did not?
I can't really think of anything. I'm not as experienced with the healthcare kind of setting, so I hope I've been a little bit helpful for you today.
Oh, no, this has been great because really I want to know um, anything about, what questions to ask teachers, about learning and behaviors in the school
Right.
system of children that are prenatally exposed, because there is really no research at all out there on developmental outcomes of children that are exposed.
Right.
So even to know what questions to ask teachers this has been helpful, because I just generated these questions, but I'm sure that your interview will help me generate more future questions.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So press stop.